Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. So, welcome to another lecture, and we would be continuing our journey with operating systems, wherein we were trying to understand what are the different modes, and we were trying to. So, in last lecture, we just learned a brief intro to uh, what address space is. Now, in this video we'll actually see what are the address spaces and why do we need the address space and how to create one, like who creates one and what happens. Now, address space. Now, what is this address space? Who creates this address space? Why do we need to create the address space? So remember, our application will be a set of instructions, right? And these instructions may often require some access to the memory. For example, in C language, you may have an instruction called as calloc or malloc. You may have something called as creating an array. Now remember, these all need to be stored, right? So for this reason, we create something called as the address space. Now remember, address space is a virtual concept. This is not physically happening in the memory. The memory is one unified block, and you cannot physically create the address space. Instead, what we do is we create a virtual memory so that we can do some features on that, so that the accessing time from the memory kind of becomes a bit easy, and we can access data at a much faster rate and from the memory, and also by reducing the time taken. So these two factors are why we have the virtual memory. So one more problem is processors these days have an address bus that is not a bit compatible, right? Remember, we need something which is bit compatible if we need to generate an address. So another reason why we do that is something called as bit compatibility, and that is the reason we have this address space being generated. Now, who creates this address space and why? So we said whenever we want to execute a program, we need to store its. First of all, it has to be converted to a machine program, right? That is a series of one and zeros. Now, the job of the processor is to it will do three things, right? Fetch, decode, and execute. Fetch is basically the next instruction. Decode is basically it will try to understand what those ones and zeros means, and the third is basically it will execute. Now remember, so for the program to go to the CPU, we have it has to be scheduled, right? So there is a software called as an operating system, whose one of the responsibilities is to schedule a program. So now when we run a program, it gets converted into something called as a process. Now a process is basically a program or lines of instructions which have been converted into machine code and are ready for execution. So the moment that process goes to the memory, goes to the CPU, the CPU will start executing it. Now it might need the access of memory at that time, right? And it cannot only, and we need a bit compatible number to be generated so that we can access the memory or manage the memory more efficiently. So that process of managing the memory is something called as address space, because our programs will have some variables. It will have some heap memory needed. Remember, these memories are not present in the memory itself. Instead, it is this physical or this virtual concept that we create about. Now there are two ways in which you can manage memory. Now one of them is something called as paging. A paging is basically you divide the memory into fixed size blocks or frames in the physical memory. The operating system then will map these virtual pages to the physical frames, and each page will be of the same size, example 4 KB. But the drawback is, what if what if my page has to be one of the page has to be greater than 4 KB? Again, data is lost here, right? So segmentation is a very good way. You are not preventing any data loss. So what we do is we divide the memory into 4 different segments, such as code segment, data segment, stack segment, and heap segment. Now the advantage of doing this is, first, it's variable size, right? Depending upon the size, if it's more code, if more lines of code are there, then the code segment will increase. If there is more data, you can have this variable option of increasing the data, and if there is less code, you can keep this less and increase this. You have many function calls, but remember, you can extend this, but this will not, all of them will not extend to an infinite amount. Now these are generally given, the amount to which it can extend is given by the offset address that is stored in a register. Now each segment will be a 16 bit address. That means we are now up 2 byte or a byte compatible number 1 has been achieved. Also, remember, this is the logical structure, right? This is not the physical structure. This is basically assuming our memory is divided in this way, so that accessing the memory becomes easy. And this is not the physical or the logical. This is not the physical. In physical, it is one single chip. However, logically, for our sake of easy access, we do this division. Now this is a program. So this is a C program in memory, highlighting how different sections. So we are going to see how different sections will work with respect to the memory, right? Now this is a C program. Okay, now let's see how memory segmentation will come into effect, and which thing will fit into what type of memory. Perfect. Okay. Now we always know, so whenever there is something called as a malloc instruction by C program, we say that whenever this is the malloc, when we overcome or when we come near to the malloc section, this will go to the heap area of the memory. Now the way the memory is addressed is, and we use it something called as an Indian format, NDN format. That basically means that you have higher addresses, and you have lower is the lower memory, right? So now remember, this is, so if you, the moment we come from, our program will start executing line by line. So these are libraries. These are, it will fetch that stdio.h library, put here. We'll get the stdlib standard input output library, and that is standard library, and we will import them. Now this is an uninitialized variable, so this will go in the data section of our segment which we have created. Now again, this is, now even in data segment there will be two parts. One, we will have the initialized data, and other we will have the non-initialized. So this will be present in the non-initialized part, and this will be present in the initialized part. Now this is a function. It's a main function represented by parentheses. Now this function will load on to the stack. This, everything goes on to the stack. Now once we are in the stack, now we come inside. Now remember, this is all whatever is present here is the stack data, right? So then in the stack we will have okay. So this arguments will be loaded above the stack. Oh, sorry, this is a function call. So this is when we start enter when we go to the main, and in the stack the main gets loaded. Now whenever we see pointer values, so these are basically stack variables. So this will be associated with the stack frame. When we come to this, we say that we are doing a malloc or a calloc will store the data in the heap area, right? So this data will be stored in the heap. Then we come to this for loop. Again, this for loop is going to be a part of the stack. So this will be stored in the stack. Now this, the moment we reach this instruction return 0, it says come out of the main. So yes, so this is how we let's get a memory segment diagram, so we will be able to understand it more clearly. Okay, yeah, this is a perfect good image. I should copy and let's come let's have a new page itself. Oh, I haven't signed in. Okay, let's get this thing down. No, paste. Okay, this is for 8086, but this is how in general the memory behaves. Okay, this is my program. Let me get this program a little bit down. Okay, so now this is how it is going to look. Now remember, the stack segment will also have some. This will be broken up into two parts. You will have a stack and a heap. So whichever the stack will grow bottom, the heap will grow towards the top. And this is the code segment. This argv will be loaded over here, and above this you have something called as a reserved space for kernel. We won't study that. Now this is data segment. This will be virtually divided. So this is all virtually, right? This is not happening. Ignore this that it is in 8086. This happens in all the mostly all the processes that we deal with. So okay, now this is, so first is data. Now remember, this is, so further classification of data will be two parts, initialized and non-initialized. You get this in the non-initialized part, and this will be in the initialized. Now then this will get loaded to the stack. Now this is the stack variable. You kind of have it over here. Now whenever you come across malloc or calloc, you're going to, so here there is this division, right? You're going to have one more section called as heap. This is going to go in the heap, and again this is going to be related to the stack. So whenever we go, or when we reach to this return 0, we are going to pop out of the stack. Okay, now so this is nothing but what is memory segmentation, right? So this is nothing but, technically we call it as address. I can term this as the other word is nothing called as the address space. Now this will be associated, every program will have its own memory segmentation done, will get its own so by address space we mean is the range of memory address that a process or a system can use to access the memory. Now remember, a process is nothing but a set of set of instructions, or nothing but a program. So a program will So address space basically refers how much range of memory addresses we are going to get, so that you will have something called as the segment address, and the so like what should be this address, that is what the address space will tell you. Now it is limited by hardware. You cannot a 32-bit system can address up to 4 GB of RAM. Remember, we need a byte compatible neighbor. It is managed directly by the hardware and the operating system. Now, this is the address space that a process sees and uses. It is abstracted from the physical memory. Now, this is a virtual address space. Remember, this is not physically. Every program will get its own address space. So, or every program which is currently running is called as a processor, right? So, each will get its own address space and own memory allocation. The memory segment is the process of how the address allocated will have a starting and end. So, what does address space indicate? From the from the memory, what is from the virtual memory, what will be the starting and what will be the address ending address of that virtual memory. Now, how to manage this memory is something, there are two ways, right? One is paging and one is segmentation. In segments, you divide into different segments, and in paging is you load a fixed size. The problem with paging is, again, the moment you load a fixed size block, you're going to lose in data if that much, what do you say, if the data is more than that, right? So then you are losing on data, and if the data is smaller than the frame, again you are wasting data, you are wasting that address, right? So that is how that memory which is given by the address space allocated by the CPU is being managed. But then what is this process control block? So the moment our program gets converted into something where we say it can now be executed, we say it as a process. So now each process will get its own process control block. Now what are the different um, uh, uh, stages in a process control block, or what are the different elements that a process control block will contain? Okay, so first is basically the process states. So as we mentioned, a process can go through a variety of states, right? Either it can be the currently executing one, that is the ready. It can be running, that it is running, and ready means I am ready to get executed. Running means I am talking, I'm on the CPU, and waiting is something that an IO event has occurred. I'm waiting for that completion, and then I'll be again go and sit in the ready queue, and then based on the algorithm, the OS will then schedule me to the scheduler, or to make me take CPU time. So it indicates what. Now, why is this stage is needed? Because remember, we are not going to sit and execute one entire process and then wait for the other process to come in. No, it doesn't work like that. Instead, what we are going to do is we are going to do something called as process switching. That is, you run a process for a certain amount of time. If it's completed, good. Else, you switch it. So by that, what we are doing is we are making sure our CPU clock cycle gets distributed to all processes, and we are not giving any process priority over each other. So and that kind of helps us to do multitasking, right? You have different tasks and each is getting the CPU time. So the moment I change from one state to another, or suppose this needs something called as, so my CPU, there should be something for the OS to indicate, right, that this process has been um, completed, move it out. So that is where this stage thing comes into picture. It kind of indicates what stage my process is currently executing in. whether I'm in the ready state or I have done my IO, now you just give me the CPU time, or whether I'm still waiting for something else to happen. Then you have something called as process ID. Now, process ID is like a unique number for each process. Uh, it basically it is for identifying that specific process. None. Okay. Now there is one more. So there are other. Uh, okay. Now we come to program counter. Now the program counter indicates the address. So we need then. So this is, remember, this is present in the architecture, right? We need the address of the next instruction to be executed. That means for the currently running process, the moment I make that switch and I start executing other process, I need somehow to define like how much program has been executed and what is the next instruction from which I need to begin the execution when I do multitasking or when I do switching between the programs. So that address is stored in this counter. Now register. Now these are the physical registers. Now the job of this is basically so after uh, s- uh, so this is where in on the CPU we are going to physically store um, um, the value, right? For example, if you are trying to run two add two numbers, right, you need to store them. So that is done in these registers. Then we have something called as CPU scheduling. Basically, it's trying to indicate what type of scheduling process is my operating system currently using. Now, memory management information. Again, this is related to segmentation. So we need to give the start. So our memory will be in the form of, we'll have access to the virtual memory, right? Although it will be a physical chip, but then it will be in the form of virtually divided segments, right? So we need the base address of each and the offset address so that you can you come to know how much or where the information is stored. The accounting information, this is basically stats, right? So whenever you open your taskbar, it displays, right, how much CPU has been utilized, how much memory has been utilized, how much RAM has been utilized. So all those features are present in this accounting information. And then, so what if you find that a process is taking too long? You can see that physically, right? The CPU utilization is 100%, so you can terminate that process based on this information. Now IO permissions, basically, what, suppose if you have to do some IO job, right? For example, reading your data from a file. So then it will contain a list of all those devices and all those whether that file is open or whether the reading is happening or not, and um all other necessary information. So this is something what we mean by the process control block. Okay. Now, so now the one thing that may arise is when I said memory, I was talking about the RAM, right? The reason why I'm talking about the RAM is, although the machine code might be stored in the hard drive, right? To get the CPU cycle, we have to bring it to the RAM, because remember, the CPU can only access the RAM. It does not have access to the HDD. HDD or secondary storages are just for storing. You can't give them the CPU cycle, right? I mean, the only job of having a secondary storage is to basically increase the amount of uh, uh, increase the amount, because RAM is limited, right? You cannot directly put everything into the RAM. Then once your RAM gets fixed, like gets occupied, then it's gone. So that is why you have secondary storage. So the only job of those HDD or HDD or whatever secondary or um, storage you have is you will move it from the HDD to the RAM. Now that copying is done by the memory management unit of the operating system. Because remember, RAM is very fast, and if and the speed of an SSD or an HDD when compared to RAM will be very less. We need very fast access, and even if you see, those are not physical HDD drives. Those are only chips. If you see, if you have ever processed opened the CPU, those will be chip like thing directly plugged into the near to the CPU, and they can do the bus transfer. So whenever we are talking about segmentation, um, we are talking about RAM. Like, we are not talking about the secondary um, or or SSD. Like the secondary storage is like HDD or SSDs. So that is all. Now the okay, so the program counter will contain the instruction to the next statement. This is very common, right? You see this in 8086 as well, right? There is something called as PC. Now stage is what state is the process in? You can have different states. Process ID is like unique identification to each process. You need to uniquely identify, right, what process or um, um, uh, what type of process, like which process are we currently executing. This is like unique identification. Then we have we also said, okay, so state is done, process ID is done. Now then we said okay, so this is again, so when we come to program counter, we are basically going to the RAM, and we will be doing the MMU or the memory organization that is given by the OS. Accounting information, again, how much CPU is utilized, which process is taking what time. Now the reason why we need is because when we make a switch from one, we'll be making a switch from P0 to P1 during multitasking, right? We'll execute it for a certain period of time, and then we will kind of move. So we need to store the next instruction address. So we have the program counter there. Now the alternate way to manage is something called as paging as well. So yeah, the reason the CPU cannot access the secondary storage is, remember, SSDs are HDD or secondary storage is only for storage purpose. It has no other rules. But nowadays we get, right, some specs as well. So what do we mean by that? So that basically indicates how fast the SSD is able to transfer data from the SSD to the RAM. It cannot match the RAM because you cannot because the RAM has to have such a speed which is similar to the CPU, right? So remember, RAMs are connected by high speed bus, and this is secondary storage. SSD will be using USB or a SATA bata or any other process, because if you want to communicate, if two objects work to, if person one, it's logical, right? If person one wants to talk with person two, they'll have to do it at the same speed, right? If one is fast, two is slow, it's not going to work. Or if it's two is fast, one is slow, again you're going to waste time, right? That's all for this lecture. So now we have studied what address space is, what PCB is, and we have studied the different states through which a process goes through. Now we'll be studying how to create a process. So like how to how does the creation of a process happen? Like what functions or what call needs to be done. So now we are going deeper into kernel functions. Now remember, this job is all of the kernel, right? Is the kernel the core thing which is going to take care of this. Next you have the hardware. So this is the kernel job to decide what to scheduling, memory management, and other important features. For example, IO handling as well. Okay, so yeah, that's all. This was a very short lecture, I believe. I don't know how minutes is the time. Yeah, okay. That is all for this lecture. I'll see you guys in the next one with some folk calls and system calls, and we'll try to understand what do you mean like when we say worker threads and so on. That's all for this lecture. See you guys in the next one. Till that time, take care. Bye bye.